Before we finish up, let's look at some examples of making queries which are not select statements. You had a very comprehensive selection of select statements in the previous section, but in reality we also need to insert, update and delete when we work with PDO. So I have an example that I want to show you, which I hope will cover most of this. We instantiate the PDO in exactly the same way as we'd normally expect. However, have a look at my SQL here. It's an update statement. So I'm setting a new title for the Antitrust Tomatoes film. Exactly the same thing. The SQL has the named placeholders and I prepare that statement. Then I execute the statement and I supply the placeholders for what I want to run. Now this will work whether you're running an insert statement, an update statement, or a delete statement. For update and delete, you will want this PDO statement row count method, which shows how many rows are affected. If I run this example here, you can see I run it, 1 row is affected. However, I have already updated that row, so when I run it again, I get no rows affected because there's nothing to match that old title because I already changed it. If you are doing an insert statement, look out for that because the last insert ID, there's a method called last insert ID, but it's on PDO, not on the statement object. So the affected rows, the row count is on the PDO statement object, but in order to tell what you just inserted, be careful because that is last insert ID and it is on the PDO object itself rather than on the statement. One more thing I want to show you before I stop talking about PDO because it's something that catches me out all the time. PDO doesn't throw exceptions or raise errors by default. So you can sometimes get into a weird situation like the one I've illustrated on the slide here. It's that original select star from countries example, except the correct table name is country. And so we'll get an unsuccessful query. It's an SQL error because it's an unknown table. However, PDO is silent. It doesn't error. And so we move on into the while loop. And the first error that we see is that we can't call fetch on the statement object. And the reason that we can't call fetch on the statement object is because when we called query on the PDO object, it didn't return as a PDO statement. It returned false. We didn't check the value. PDO, like I say, doesn't throw exceptions normally. By default, out of the box, it won't show you that. So what we should have done is run the prepare and then the execute. The execute will have failed. And so we can have a look if we've got an error code. If we can't access that, then we need to move on and handle that error. Any kind of non-zero value would indicate a problem, and then you probably want to go on and print a bit more information about that using the error info and error code methods that are available on the PDO statement object. The best way around this is to, when you instantiate your PDO object, to set up its error handling. Here is the line that I use almost everywhere, setting the attribute on the PDO object to be that the error mode should be exception. And then when something goes wrong, if you get an SQL error or something, it will raise an exception for you. The examples that you've seen, I hope, cover most of the use cases that you're likely to see. PDO with prepared statements is incredibly powerful. You get performance speedups for repeated queries, but most of all, it makes it difficult to let SQL injections slip through into your database. The side effects, the side benefits of having, oh, it's a really consistent interface, it's very nicely done, it supports transactions, is nice, but the key for me here is it makes it easy to do it right. And I think that builds for really strong applications in the future.